Hey team, it's Conrad, addiction coach from Melbourne, Australia. Why can't I balance my emotions without drugs and alcohol is a question or a statement I hear all of the time. And today I'm going to help you to demystify it. I'm going to teach you 4 key things. Number 1, the effects that drugs and alcohol have on your emotional regulation. Number 2, I'm going to help you to figure out why you might be hiding from emotional feelings. And I'm going to help you to understand how to deal with them when you stop taking drugs and alcohol. Number 3, I'm going to give you all the practical tools that you need to actually build self-awareness and balance your emotions. And number 4, and most importantly, I'm going to show you the number 1 thing that people always get wrong that causes 99% of the relapses that I see. So make sure that you watch until the end. Now, your emotional regulation is absolutely shot if you are using drugs and alcohol. If you know it or if you just learnt it now, I want you to know that that is the truth. Okay? Drugs and alcohol hijack your brain's ability to regulate emotions, and that leaves you really feeling stuck and in this cycle of instability. Now, when you take drugs, okay, your highs actually get lower and your lows get even lower than that. And suddenly you are reacting instead of responding. So things like frustration, anxiety, and these huge anger spikes happen because your nervous system is absolutely shot. Now, in terms of the biochemistry, and you can do a deeper dive if you want to go back and watch my series on the biochemistry of addiction. But in terms of what's happening, your dopamine is completely overloaded. All right. If you've been doing drugs and alcohol for a long time, you're going into prefrontal cortex impairment and you are hyperactive or you're having a hyperactive stress response. Okay, so you're really agitated and there might be a bit of a GABA imbalance happening inside. We don't have time to go into all of that today, but make sure you go back and watch that if you want a deeper understanding of those things. Now, the problem with this is that it starts affecting everybody around you. Okay. And I can say this from working with hundreds of people to help them break the cycle of addiction. It affects men, women, others, everybody. For the men watching, okay, and I'll say this, and it might be a little bit of a generalization, but I believe in anger. I think it's actually a thing that will keep us safe. But I have this golden rule, and this might be the big learning or the first big learning that you take from this training. On a scale of 1 to 10, okay, if 10 is white rage, right, that's your jumping out of your car, acting like a crazy person, doing things that are completely out of this world, and 1 is complete serenity, okay, I have a scale that I share with people, and I say this: 8, 9, and 10, in terms of the high levels of anger, should never be for people that you love, okay? So if you're watching this and you know that your 8, 9, and 10 are happening in front of your kids or your wife or your partner or your loved ones, then I'm so glad that you're here, okay? Because those things might keep you safe one day, but they're not for people that you love. And that's the first thing I'd help people do is let's get back into the 5, 6, and 7s and more down the middle, right? So we have a little bit more calm. Now, let's move on to understanding why. And this is critically important, okay? Now, people are hiding from something, and they're either hiding from something or they're hiding from feeling something. And being numb works until it starts to affect the people around you, okay? So you can't go through life hiding in this bubble and thinking that, well, I'm fine, so everyone else is fine, because you're not. And that's when people say, hey, dad, or hey, mum, or hey, girlfriend, and you don't seem present. You don't seem here. You seem disassociated, right? And that's because you're stoned or you're high or you're drunk, because you don't want to feel these things and it permeates into your life, okay? So I really don't want that for anyone that I work with. When we work with people, we help them to build what I call a brilliant drug-free life, right? And the first step actually looks something like this. So I'm going to show you on the screen. Now, if you look at here and you have a look at our identity integration model, and this is the model that we work on in all of our programs. It's something that I designed and I really, really believe in. Now, what I want everybody to have in this life is a brilliant drug-free life. Okay. Again, one of the biggest problems that I hear from people is, Conrad, why can't I, handle my triggers and stress responses and manage my emotions? And that's why it's at the top of this model. Okay. So what we have to be able to help people with is get them to a point of clear communication where they're going from a place of hiding, right, and isolating to a place of healing, and ultimately help them to open up. Okay, it's actually the first step. So I'm so glad that you're hearing this. And inside this work, right, we're working on things like helping people to balance their emotions every single day, helping them to expand their perspective or their outlooks on life, and also helping them to create safe surroundings so they're not constantly triggered. Okay. So this is critically important if we are going to help people to go from a place of being, let's say, completely numb to a place of aware, right? Let's use that. If this is the goal, there's going to be some things that happen along the way, and understanding how to fix this or how to go from this place of being numb to aware is the actual work. Okay, so what we want to do is understand that this happens in the minute, it happens in the hour, it happens in the day. Yeah. And one of the first things that I teach people, okay, so if we said the first step to this was to be able to manage your state, right? Then I help people and I teach them things like the delta breath, okay, which is a triangle breath work that helps people to calm themselves and manage their state. I also have an exercise called the pinch, right, which is another tool that we use to help people to manage their state in the moment, right? And that ability to reset. So when your anger gets up into, into this kind of territory up here, we dial in this stuff and we roll things back. Okay, so that's really, really critically important. Now, then step number two is building self-awareness, right? So if we remember, we're going from being, completely numb to a place of awareness. What we have to do is first we have to manage our state, and then secondly is we need to be able to, I guess, build self-awareness. Okay, and the reason that this is important is because we might not understand down here why things are happening. Okay. We just know that they're not good and we have to stop, right? So we manage our state in the moment. We try and create state change through breath and through situational change and environmental change. And then what we have to do is we have to do a bit more of a deep dive. Okay. So building self awareness and self reflection, celebrating your wins, and taking notes of areas for improvement are really, really critical upon on this journey. Okay, so we use tools like Win the Day and Win the Week, and also a journal to reflect and score each day. Okay, so you've jumped up on this green line, you've figured out how to manage your state, and now you're up here and you're going, oh, cool. I know how to manage it, but I don't really know what's going on. And I need to kind of figure out what my triggers are and how I improve. So we dial in things into self-awareness. We're journaling, we're writing down, we're giving ourselves a score each day, and we're practicing self-awareness and self-reflection to improve. Okay. And then we get to walk through this door and we're kind of up here almost at the top, and we've closed these doors behind us, and we're getting closer to building awareness. Okay. Now, step three, and this is critically important, and I reckon that this is at the root of all of our emotional responses, is that we have to figure out how to really improve communication. Okay. So you'll remember on that, the model that I showed you, clear communication, right? It's critically important. Now, what we do when we're helping people to develop or improve their communication is we actually give them tools like wins and roadblocks and relationship gardening to get them to a point where their needs are heard and they are doing this without conflict. Okay, so this is in interpersonal relationships. And once they've started to manage their state, then they've built this level of self-awareness, and now they are kind of communicating and setting boundaries, right? And they've got little tools and little systems in place to help them and the people around them. They're getting very, very close to that sense of awareness. Okay. So you can see the journey. Let's figure out how to help ourselves in the moment. Let's reflect so we can make consistent improvements. And then let's improve the way that we communicate and set boundaries with the people that we love. Right. And all of these three things lead to better self awareness, which leads to better emotional regulation. Okay. Now, there is an extra step here, and this is critically important. And, I can sit and talk about this, but I've got to talk about it in an addiction frame. Okay. Now we know that down here, and this is critically important, that we are feeling deep feelings of shame and guilt. We are overwhelmed and we really don't know where to start. Okay. So what we have, it's a beautiful exercise and we call it the dig. Right. And the dig is really important because what you're left with when you go through addiction is you come out with this huge pile of rubble. Okay. And if you're standing here and all of this rubble is at the start of your journey up and you've got to dig through it at the start, you'll never get there. All right. It's completely overwhelming. So what we do is we help people to really, really figure out where to start, what to tackle, what to leave behind, what order to put it in so they can drop the rocks, okay, of deep feelings of shame and guilt and actually start the journey, okay, up towards awareness, right? Because if they don't and they get overwhelmed, they'll never get through this pile. Okay. So that's really the fourth and the most critical tool that we would implement. Now, I want you to have this next thing and I want you to really, really hear it. I promised I would talk to you about the number one mistake that people make. They stop taking drugs, they feel huge amounts of guilt and shame, and they do nothing to build the muscles required to balance their emotions. Okay. They don't manage their state. They don't build self awareness. They don't improve communications and boundaries. They think that stopping is the magic lever, and it's not. And this is important. It is the thing that allows you to feel what you need to feel to do the work. Okay. Now, people who refuse to lean into clear communication, balance their emotions, work on perspective, and create safe surroundings end up frustrated, triggered, and in such a negative perspective or headspace that they relapse repeatedly. Okay. You must avoid this. If you can get this right, I guarantee you that this is the most critical step after stopping the drug or the drink and it will absolutely solidify your recovery, right? So that is the number one mistake that people make. They just get to the bottom of that hill, they stop taking drugs, and they don't do those three things up the top. Okay. So, guys, let's make sure that we recap and finish this off strong, right? So, again, the first thing that I talked about is helping you to manage your state. So, how do you connect to your breath? How do you connect to a change of environment? How do you practice the pause, okay, to make sure that you don't react? Number two, how do we develop a little bit of self-awareness? So, when that happened, I felt heightened and then I took the breath and I went outside and I took a walk and I came back and that was good, but I've got to, improve on that. Yeah. And we do that through self-reflection, win the day, win the week, and journaling. Okay. So keeping your side of the street clean. Number three, we have to improve the way that we communicate. We have to set boundaries and we have to understand how people communicate with us, whether that's verbal or non-verbal. Okay. Intent versus interpretation is another big thing that we talk about. And then the biggest one, we've got to understand that if we stand in front of that huge pile of shame and guilt, we are never, ever going to get to a point where we are going to make a start. It's going to be overwhelming. Okay. So the dig is critically important. And remember, over all of the top of this, you have to understand why you're hiding in the first place. Okay. And that's not something that I can explain here in 15 minutes. It might be a trauma. It might be something that you've grown up with. It might be, years and years of an unhappiness. It might be lack of purpose. Okay. But you'll get there and we'll figure it out. And once you do, things start to come in, they start to flood emotions, right? And again, if you're managing your state, building self-awareness and improving your communication, that's the way to move towards actual state of emotional regulation. Okay. So guys, if you found this helpful, please subscribe, like the video, send it to a friend or a loved one who might need to hear this. It will help me to present free and useful information each week to help more people. I hope that this has helped. Remember, understanding the why is critically important. Knowing what you're trying to hide from and understanding that when you come out of it, you'll be fine. And then managing and implementing these tools to actually build a system, a reliable system. Okay. Because if you don't, like I said, this is the number one thing that I see people relapse on. So I hope this has been helpful. I'll see you soon and have a great week ahead.